Welcome back to the KYN podcast. One podcast after the other, it gets exciting over and over again, and we're always glad to host an amazing youth from across the world onto the platform to share in the space they're in. Today, we're going all the way to Guyana. Guyana is one of the South American islands, and we're going to be joined by Lisa Hussain. So Lisa is very passionate about development of Guyana. She's a Sage Core Scholar alumna. She's a CARICOM Researcher Intern at UN Women, and she's basically understanding a multi-country study on the economic cost of violence against women and girls in CARICOM. She graduated from the University of Guyana in 2018 with a bachelor's in economics, but many of her accomplishments went beyond that of the academic field. In recognition of her contributions to the cultural environment of the university's campus, she was the recipient of both the Council of the University Prize and the Dennis Irvine Award. These awards are earned by those who were earned in second year when she founded the first and only female empowerment organization in the University of Guyana, named the University of Guyana Female Empowerment Movement, UGFEM. So Lisa is quite active as she currently serves on an advisory committee of the UGFEM. She's also a 2021 mentee of Miracle Corners of the World Leaders Fellowship Program and a 2022 coordinator for Caribbean and South America of the Kectil program. She's the CEO of her own movement, Period Positive, aimed at shedding the myths and taboos for a positive Guyana. So you can tell by this brief profile that Lisa is deep into activism and getting rid of violence against women and all this gender equity divide and all that. So we want to hear from you, Lisa. I hope I've given you a thorough introduction. If there's anything else you want to share in your introduction about yourself, please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, Daniel. I tried to make that as brief as possible,
Hmm.
but I realized still seemed a bit
With the way
long.
I was explaining it, it turned long.
Yes,
Hmm.
that's basically about it. As you said, I'm very passionate about advocating for the rights and empowerment of women and girls. In general, of course, because I live in Guyana, I focus a lot on Guyana, but also coming from how I grew up, I moved around a lot in Guyana,
Hmm.
and that move even went to one of the Caribbean islands. So
Wow.
my family migrated about when I was 12, 13, 14 to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So I lived like about 5 years of my life in that Caribbean island. So I'm also finding ways to give back to that island. And I'm working on something. Hopefully, I can tell you soon about that as they approve my proposal for them in that country over there. So that's basically me in a nutshell. In everything and anything I do, I always find a way to see how I can include women and how I can include girls in the conversation.
Nice, nice, nice. We want to hear about your passion in
Mhm.
development in Guyana, especially being a SED scholar and alumni. What activities have you
Mhm.
been actively involved in Guyana that you would like to share with the world?
Okay. My major, well, recently, that was like in 2020. Well,
Hmm.
I can go back to starting at the University of Guyana, realizing at my university there was a vacuum in representation for women and girls on campus. That's how I started the movement called UGFEM today, University of Guyana Female Empowerment Movement.
Hmm.
And I didn't know what that would turn out to be, or I didn't know I would have been such a passionate advocate for women and rights empowerment.
Hmm.
At that time, all I saw was that there was a space needed for dialogue and support. That was my mission. So it wasn't to be something trending, or it wasn't to do something to get something out of it.
Hmm.
I just saw that I needed the help, and even I needed the space, because as much as everything I do is about helping those around me, I also need the space with my fellow sisters and to make a better Guyana and a better world for everyone else. As a result of that, I um, persons who would have seen my work and benefited from it, I became the first vice president for the Girl Build Girl Foundation in
Yeah.
Guyana. This is a movement started by another young lady, Ms. Gabrielle Chapman.
Mm-hmm.
So she started her own movement, and seeing my work with UGFEM,
Mm.
she approached me to guide and help her with her organization. So I've
Yeah.
been involved in that for about a year.
Mm-hmm.
After that, I am currently as you said in my introduction, a 2021 mentee of Miracle Corners of the World
Mm.
Fellowship, Young Leaders Fellowship. We had to join that fellowship, I had to submit a project. So my project I submitted was on periods or menstruation.
Mm-hmm.
So at the moment, the work that I am mostly involved in is my project or my movement on period positivity in Guyana.
Yeah.
As it said, it's on shedding the myths and taboos about periods. I've realized it's an area, yes. For when we talk about period poverty, we mainly focus on providing pads, providing the products needed. But a very important aspect of period poverty as well is education.
Education.
And a lot of the times we don't talk about, how does these myths and taboos affect our society? And it doesn't only affect girls,
Yeah.
it also affects guys because they a topic that sometimes we fail to, or not a topic, a variable that we sometimes fail to include in women empowerment, women and girls empowerment, are guys,
Mm-hmm.
because we get mixed up sometimes when we talk about gender equality or
Equality.
gender equity. A lot of times we think gender is synonymous for women and girls, but that's not the case.
Mm-hmm.
Gender is a wide spectrum and it includes more than women and girls.
Mm-hmm. Why don't you demystify for us this gender equality,
Mhm.
equity, and just break it down for us and narrow it down for us to understand
Mhm.
the difference between equity and equality.
Well, it's that could be a very long
Mm-hmm.
topic, but when you let me just a lot of times people don't like to say equality
Mm.
because equality includes it's much wider than equity.
Mm.
I have the perfect because recently I did some training for my girls in UGFEM.
Yeah.
So even though I would have graduated from the University of Guyana,
Mm.
I still I still stay with them because I know that the girls there, that when you first start out with any advocacy or any movement, you you don't know everything.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm here still supporting. So gender equity. So what does gender equality mean exactly? And a lot of times gender equality and gender equity are commonly used interchangeably, but
Mm.
they have different meanings. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to first start with gender equality.
Mm-hmm.
Women and men have equal rights, equal conditions, treatment, and opportunities for realizing their full potential, human rights, and dignity, and for contributing to economic, social, cultural, and political development.
Mm-hmm.
Gender equality is therefore the equal valuing by society of the similarities and differences of men and women
Mm.
and the roles they play.
Mm.
It is based on women and men being full partners in the home, community, and society.
At large.
So that's gender equality.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about gender equity now, this is the process of being fair. To ensure fairness, special temporary measures may need to be taken to compensate for historical or systemic bias or
Mm-hmm.
discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about gender equity now, that means it is a means of achieving gender equality. So they prefer, so that's the difference there.
mm.
If I didn't lose you, I hope not.
No, 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 no. I'm following greatly, and I'm getting the deep divide
Yes.
and how it comes into place.
Mm-hmm.
But what I
Mm-hmm.
would like to know is what causes the stereotypes? Are there stereotypes in the first place? And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
what's currently happening?
Oh, definitely stereotypes exist. Stereotypes exist in all its forms, especially for gender. And gender stereotypes it's as a result, of course, for how you think, how
Mm,
society is at a certain point in time.
mm,
Their generalizations about your gender attributes, your differences, and most importantly, the roles that you play in society.
yes.
Of course, these assumptions are not supported by science,
Mm,
but are part of how we are socialized to perform in our roles as men and women.
mm,
Um, the some common stereotypes that still exist, unfortunately, um, and across the world. There's so much I can mention.
mm,
For example, in Netherlands, a stereotype is a good wife, an injured leg, a pair of torn trousers, stay at home. So you see,
mm,
that is a woman should be at home.
mhm,
Um, in India, virtuous is the girl who suffers and dies without a sound.
mhm,
So I know that stereotype in its different form in Guyana is known as uh, uh, a lady must be seen but not heard.
mhm, mhm,
So you shouldn't have opinions as a
mhm,
girl, as a woman.
mhm,
Um, yes. So that's just some of it in a nutshell.
mm, mm, mm. Amazing, amazing. So it's good you're breaking this down for us to actually know currently what's
Yeah.
happening, and we would like to understand what's the recent movement, and what are
Mhm,
many people across the world, what are many people in Guyana
mhm,
standing up for,
mhm,
what is trending, that we should
mhm,
follow up and make sure we are a part of that. We can join hands with you, with
mhm,
other
mhm.
movements to ensure that this equity divide is actually rectified.
Okay. At the moment, I think in general there are always lots of conversations about how we can empower women and girls,
Mm,
and those continue to date. Sometimes it's a little disappointing that after many years we're still having these conversations,
mm,
but it unfortunately it's still to date. However, I guess in my field as well, because I in economics and finance,
mm,
the buzzing topics in Guyana and around the world right now is women's access to finance,
mm,
and how women can be more financially empowered as well.
mhm,
So even recently, our Ministry of Human Protection and Social Services in Guyana, they had a We Lift forum where women businesses
mm.
they were invited to this conference or this huge gathering where women businesses were presented there. So you got an opportunity to visit this conference where all women businesses were displayed.
Yeah,
The ministry also recently launched an app
an app.
where, as a woman, you can register your business on the app. So
Mm-hmm.
even if the ministry or anyone needs your business, you're all on that app, so we
Yeah.
can get to know you, get to learn about you, and access your business. So I think that was one of, as I said, we're still having conversations, but when I see certain actions like that,
Mm,
it gives me a bit of hope that, okay, we're not just talking, these are actual evidence that we're doing something about that.
mm-hmm.
In addition, when we talk about financial inclusion in Guyana and around the world, we're starting to look at ways of how beneficial it is and can be when women are included in the financial sector. So in a lot of countries, and even in Guyana, have you ever checked what the process is for a woman to set up a bank account? In some countries, it's very difficult for her to do so.
Oh, no.
She's a housewife, so when you require to set up a bank account, you need a job letter, you need pay slips, you need all of these things. Where as a housewife or as someone who is selling informally in the market or something, I wouldn't have those documentation.
Yeah.
So by indirectly now, you would have left me out of the equation. Indirectly, you have a barrier up for me as a woman being a part the of the financial sector. So those are some buzzing areas right now for that not only in Guyana but
Worldwide.
worldwide. IDB, World Bank, all of these renowned institutions are talking about financial inclusion, how
Yes.
to get women more involved in that aspect. Um, I guess that's the buzzing area that comes to mind at the moment. Of course, the usual problems of, and it's so sad that I have to say usual, like domestic violence, um, those still remain. But we're finding ways to tackle that. For instance, the study I'm currently interning at UN Women, we're actually now looking at the economic cost of violence against women and girls.
Yeah.
So we're going to be investigating what that costs governments to because if we show it from that aspect now, we can see, well, if we probably implement preventative measures and not focus on the reactive measures, it can cost us less. And we're going to be dealing with a problem that, we've had for years, and we can't seem to find a solution to it.
I get you. I get you. Wow, you are so well versed in this space. You're just oozing with details and facts that are,
Mhm,
relevant now. I just have two more discussion points
mhm.
before we come to the close of the cast. The first one
Sure.
is male roles and female roles
Mhm,
in society.
mhm,
Over the years
mhm,
in Kectil, we have been trying to demystify this and try to,
mhm,
you know, get into that
mhm,
equity in roles in society. I don't know what you
mhm,
have to share about
mhm.
that.
Well, that for me is perpetually changing,
Mm,
and that's where I don't think our roles is what the difficulty is.
mm-hmm,
I think our adaptation to those roles become difficult
mm-hmm,
because as soon as we understand or think that we understand, okay, this is my purpose, this is my goal, this is who I am as a man, as a woman, or as a person. As soon as you get to that point, Daniel, something happens,
yeah.
society shifts, and you're now in a place where you're confused. Some
Mm-hmm,
can be confused, and you'll be like, okay, what do I do now? How do I talk? How do I walk? How do I interact?
yeah.
So I think that's where the difficulty comes in.
Mm-hmm,
Um, you want, and this is probably a bit controversial, you won't be able to ever fully understand what your role is as a man or a woman because it's always changing. And
mm-hmm,
as society determines what that is, it's now up to you to know how you feel about that
yeah.
and to know what you identify with,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm,
So that to me is what the feel well how I feel about gender roles in society. Because if I wake up tomorrow and I don't feel I don't feel at one, or I don't feel like this is who I am in doing something
Mm,
or what I identify with,
mhm.
I will change that. And unfortunately, that's the type of society we're living in. It's always changing. So it's just about adapting to that and how you feel in that
In
adaptation.
the adaptation. Amazing. Those are amazing insights because I thought it was something that it was getting
Mm,
lost out of control. But I think now more and more that the change and adaptability,
mhm,
like you've shared, is one thing that we should all embrace to avoid being left
mhm,
out or joining the rest. I think it's amazing. I just want to have your parting shots. If you can spend
mhm,
just hear your parting shots about this whole topic of gender equity, the
mhm,
sensitivity of it, and just what you want the world to
mhm,
really take away from this
mhm,
discussion that we have had around gender-based
mhm,
issues and equity across.
mhm. Okay. Well, first of all, I would like, if you forget everything that I say here today,
Mhm,
just remember that gender issues, it's not a woman or a girl issue.
mhm,
Gender issue is everyone's issue.
mhm,
And each of us are, whether we realize it or not, sometimes because we're indirectly impacted by gender issues. So we are all impacted by it. We all have a role to play in it. And something, a phrase I always hold dear to everything I do and who I am is that we're stronger together.
mhm,
So if we don't work together, or if we don't tackle, if for instance, let's imagine a world that only you and I live in, Daniel.
yeah.
If something is impacting me,
Mhm,
it's gonna have an impact on you. So
mhm,
then just think about that with more people. It's that we're like a huge family.
yeah.
So I think once we approach gender issue with that mindset, that it's an everybody issue, I think that's how a lot of changes are gonna occur,
Mm,
more than they currently are, and that's how I think as well. We get to understand each other even better. And
yeah.
that's what it's all about. We're all just here trying to understand each other and trying to live together. There's only one world we have, one life we have. Um, so let's just work together and make that better for us and future generations to come.
Wow, wow, wow. Those are some of the most amazing wrap up of the podcast today. You share how much we um shouldn't have that bias because gender equity is for
Mhm,
both male and female roles. And you also
mhm,
make great reference to how we should live in harmony across the world and live together and try to make it better each and every day. Amazing, Lisa. I don't know how much I would like to
mhm.
appreciate you for being part of the podcast series today. There's so much that I've learned in this short period of time that we have talked. Actually, we have been within the time frame, the listening time frame of an average youth, which is about 30 minutes or so. So I'm excited to hear what's trending currently in the gender equity, and the work you're doing is amazing, and you like to see you grow, see you empower more ladies, see your research go out there and have a significant impact on the world. And we are so happy to have you on the podcast today, Lisa. With that, I'd
Thank
like
you.
to thank you and everyone else, and thank you all for tuning in to the KYN podcast.